We are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Flugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our ever-growing channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends if Avenue. Do not be afraid, PATC community. Do not be afraid to be a legend in the comment section and with your phone calls later in the show. Welcome in Friday afternoon, early evening for some of you. Early this morning, I woke up early this morning and listened to ESPN College Game Day podcast. Pete Thamel. He had some interesting things to say. We released episode 341. If you haven't listened to it, go check it out after the live show. But Pete Thamel made some comments and it didn't surprise us. I don't even think we really disagree with Pete Thamel. It's still important. It's still important to analyze, and we're going to fill in the blanks because it's not as easy as 1, 2, 3, 4 when it comes to the SEC expansion candidates. And I guess you could say Big Ten expansion candidates as well. But I believe, it's just my belief, I believe Pete Thamel was really just talking about it within a perception of ESPN and SEC. That's how I'm taking it. You can take it different. If you disagree with me, put it in the chat or with your phone calls later in the show. But it's It's not as simple as 1, 2, 3, 4. We talked about it in a live show last night. We had a major Holy Smokes Theater update. And again, if you missed the show last night, after this one, go and watch that one as well, because there was a lot of interesting information. We're going to be going over some of it right here in our monologue. This is the main talking point of this Friday afternoon show as we get ready for Army versus Navy tomorrow. Go Army, beat Navy. Go Army, beat Navy. And tonight, well, we got the quarterfinals of the FCS. Tonight's going to be Furman versus Montana. I'm going to be watching the game. I hope you do as well. A lot of great action this weekend at FCS. In fact, I think I'm going to be doing an episode on it tomorrow morning, so watch for that here at Peek Around the Corner. Before we go into fill in the blank segment of this live show December 8th, as we head towards the first quarter of 2024, which we believe is going to be epic, I want to thank everybody coming on in. I also want to get to some news, portal news, head coaching news, and also I've got a question. Keep your head on a swivel. Keep your head on a swivel during this live show. What is going on with quarterback Riley Leonard? Has he committed to Notre Dame? He was there for 2 days. Is there any breaking news? Is it going to break during a live show? Keep your head on a swivel. Let us know. Let us know if there's any breaking news on that. Before we go any further, I want to thank everybody for coming on in. Bo Stacker, he's in the house. He was first. Skull Ducky, here we go. Buckeye Jared Jones is in the house. Karan Shakur is in the house. I thought it was first. Looks like I'm second. You might be fourth. 4 is a good number. 4 is a good number. Yeah, maybe fourth. Matt Neese is in the house. Baylor Patrick is in the house. Jeff Jorgensen. Randy Taylor. Red Raider Laura Weiss is in the house. Daniel Montcastle. I got some news from Mr. Montcastle, early peak member. Indiana Hoosiers. They're targeting a quarterback. I love this quarterback. I talked about him week 0 this year. Week 0. I know no one can remember week 0. I can. Or maybe I think it was week 0. Week 0, week 1, whatever. We're going to be talking about that in a little bit, Daniel. It's between right now it's between Indiana and Wake Forest for a quarterback I love. So buckle up, Daniel. Sergeant Pickles, he's getting ready. College football playoffs. Pickles is getting ready. Washington. Holy smokes. Washington, Texas, the playoffs. Ryan Brooks, head on a swivel. Thank you, early peak member. Ryan Brooks, Heartbreak 25. Son of Sarek, you listen to ESPN? I'm sorry. Son of Sarek is not happy with me. He's not happy with me. Immaculate's in the house. Tony, Tough Tony is in the house. Got some good news for the Gophers. Got some good news for Tony. Sounds like Darius Taylor is ready to rock. Ready to rock. The 5-7 Gophers. Sounds like they got their beast of a running back ready to go in the bowl game. Bowling Green, you are in trouble. I'm taking the game seriously. I'm an idiot. What can I say? I'm an idiot. Sergeant Pickles, go Navy, beat Army. No. What's going on here? I love it. AMAC is in the house. Clay Tree. It's go time, Greg. Clay, I'm going to say try, unless you correct me, Clay. Clay's in the house. Becky, go Huskies. Riley Leonard is taking the Ohtani approach. Ohtani, is he going to Toronto? Everyone's doing the whole plane thing, tracking the plane. There's a video out of an airport supposedly he walked into. But according to the signs up on the walls, it didn't look like it was Toronto's airport. It looked like an airport in Los Angeles. Maybe the video was old. Keep your head on the swivel. Let us know in the chat what is going on with that. Chris Hughes, thank you so much for your super chat. Thank you so much for your generosity to this channel. Per your episode yesterday, this order would track correctly. Virginia, Virginia Tech, North Carolina, North Carolina State are tied at the hip. This would bring the SEC to 20. That is one of the many, 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 many possible scenarios. NC State has a lot of power in North Carolina. But mainly our show yesterday was information we received. We poked and prodded for 5 days. Mainly it was focused on Virginia and Virginia Tech. I did not go down the North Carolina State rabbit hole. That's a separate universe. I'm not going to mix up the two. We will try, how do I put this? We will explore how tied at the hip they are here in the future. But mainly yesterday was the story of Virginia and Virginia Tech. And we're going to go through it more in our monologue. As you can see here, most people probably in the chat haven't seen this. This is our peek around the corner chalkboard. We only really use it for watch parties. As we're doing a live game, people come into the chat. We talk about the live game in real time. And we use this as our scoreboard. But we're going to use this as just a prop to show us Pete Thamel's rankings of the ESPN SEC expansion candidates. And I'm going to add to it just a little bit as we go on. Thank you, Chris Hughes, for the super chat. I appreciate it. Zach Johnson, Gopher, let's go. I think Darius Taylor is ready to rock. I think he is. And he's coming back next year. Immaculate's in the house. Jan is in the house. When does the portal window close? I believe, before we say the portal window close, the window is a 30-day window starting December 4th. So I'm guessing it's January 4th, somewhere around there, for your name to get into the portal. Now, there will be people in the portal, student athletes in the portal that are going to commit to a team soon after. Still there are going to be some soon after January 4th. When the window closes, it's entry. Get into the portal entry. It's a 30-day window. And it's only a 30-day window for those who are entering it as like your first time. You get a one-time free swing at it, right? For grad students, I believe the grad students after January 4th, for example, when they become grad students, they can enter the portal. And if your coach leaves, for example, the head coach of Troy, Summerall, we're going to get into that. He's taken a job with Tulane. Tulane's got their new head coach. We're going to hit that right now, real soon. Well, Troy now has a 30-day window. The players there have a 30-day window to go into the portal. And that's going to extend, obviously, past January 4th. So sometimes, but the main portal window closes around, I think, January 4th. It used to be a 45-day window. I believe it now it's a 30-day window. If I got any of that wrong, please correct me in the comments or with the phone call later in the show. Okay, so thanks for everybody coming on in. Movie Time Blues, Marcus Wood, and he is in the house. Okay. Now, let's get to it. Let's get through the first couple. Let's quickly get through. For example, Bruce Feldman, early this morning, Tulane is targeting Troy's John Sumrall for its head coaching job. The former Tulane assistant has done a remarkable job in 2 seasons at Troy. I think they went like 10-2 and 11-2, something like that. Later on, it became official. Pete Thamel. Sources, Tulane and John Sumrall have agreed to terms on a 6-year deal. An announcement is coming shortly. Sumrall won the Sun Belt the last 2 years at Troy. Troy defeated James Madison. No, they didn't defeat James. Troy won the Sun Belt championship. Troy made a significant effort to keep Sumrall, per sources. Sumrall was already the highest paid Sun Belt coach at $1 million. They offered him a 5-year deal that averaged nearly $1.4 million, included additions to staff salary pool that's already the highest in the league. Troy also announced on Sunday a $10 million indoor practice facility for football, which had been one of the last key facility pieces there. So Tulane AAC takes the highly 2-year successful head coach of Troy as Tulane loses Willie Fritz to Houston. Troy was the head coach position was the highest paid head coach in the Sun Belt. They invested in a practice facility. This gives you an example where the pecking order is in the G5. The AAC is on top. Mountain West could be right there with them. Sun Belt football has been excellent over the last 5 years. It's getting better and better and better. It's closed the gap on everybody else, but the resources quite aren't there with the other schools. Sun Belt is a tick better than Conference USA. It's right there with the MAC, but when it comes to the AAC and the Mountain West, they are a few steps below. I'm not going to get on my soapbox. I know this is not what those schools' future are secured. ACC, I think, is going to go down basically the same train track where some of those ACC schools eventually are going to decide to secure their future and make a deal with some of the big-time, big-brand AAC schools that are going to leave for the SEC, Big Ten, and possibly a couple to the Big 12. What I'm saying is this era of consolidation is also happening in the G5, and it's going to happen a whole lot more here in the next 10 years. However, I want to make it a big point here. I get it. I get it. The world of college football, Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama, you have to look out for yourselves. You want to spend the money that you make in. You want to use all those resources to get at the top, to stay at the top of college football. And I think that pathway, that avenue is going to be there for the biggest schools, for the biggest brands, for the helmet schools. But I still believe in the playoff access to the G5 schools is paramount. I hope it continues. I think it will. I think a deal is going to be struck for 2026, the Great Gold Rush and beyond, that there's going to be a G5 representative in the 2026 and beyond playoffs. It's going to happen in 2024, 2025. That's locked in. But the Great Gold Rush of 2026, when even more playoff money is going to come into the picture, because you're going to have a bidding war. Not just ESPN, but other media companies, potential media partners for the college football playoffs. There's going to be a bidding war, competition, Amazon, possibly Apple. Money's going to flow into this, and it is the Great Gold Rush. And I think it's paramount that G5 has a school in the playoffs. Look, the incentive to drive investment into the student athletes at these G5 schools. Football, of course, the money that comes into football helps pay for other things in the front porch of these universities, these athletic departments. You see Troy investing, Tulane investing more and more after that stadium they built there in New Orleans. They keep building up. And I just think it's fundamentally important that these G5 schools have playoff access going forward. A lot of you disagree with me. I understand. I might be the only one on an island here in the next couple of years. But I think it's vitally important. For some people say, well, why don't the G5 schools have their own playoffs? Maybe someday down the road that happens. But I got to tell you something. When they do that, if they do that, they're not going to make the money. They're not going to make close to the money that they do being a part of the Autonomy 4 playoffs. In other words, in the last 10 years in this playoff contract, media contract, 80% of the revenue went to the autonomy schools. 20% went to the G5 schools. That's going to be happening probably somewhere around those percentages going forward. That's what it is in 2024, 2025. We don't know what 2026 and beyond is going to look like. Getting 20% of this pie is going to be a whole lot more than 100% of a G5 playoff pie for the G5 schools. So I hope we continue to see G5 going forward here in 2024 access, because it's going to drive investment, incentives into these college football programs. You can see it happening. You already see it happening. The Mountain West schools want to get in. Oregon State, Washington State. They're going to get a new media contract in 2025, 2026. And then you're going to see some movement, some realignment, some consolidation. Anyways, I'm off my soapbox. I promise I'm not going to go back there again in this particularly live show. I just wanted to talk about that first. Let me talk about the portal. Then let me talk about North Carolina Chancellor. And then we'll get into this. It's all tied together. Tyler Barton, Tennessee, Volunteers. He's in the portal, the edge rusher. One of the top pass rushers in the SEC. Barron finished the season with 6 sacks, 10.5 tackle for losses. He's got about 13, 14 sacks in his career. He's a grown man. I think he's like 21, 22, 23 years old. He's got another year of eligibility. I think there's going to be big time offers for Tyler Barron. So look for his name. He just jumped in. There's a couple other volunteers that jumped in. This guy is going to get offers. Whoever gets him is going to get a very valuable edge rusher in the portal. Now, here is the Indiana Wake Forest news. Curtis Rourke, Ohio University quarterback Curtis Rourke, tells On3 Sports he plans to make visits to Indiana and Wake Forest. The 2022 MAC Offensive Player of the Year has thrown for 7,666 career yards, 50 touchdowns in just 16 interceptions. Now, I talked about this guy. I talked about him before the season started. Here's the thing. Rourke won the 2022 MAC Offensive Player of the Year, and he had an ACL, MCL, something like that, injury before the season was even over. I think it was a couple games left to go. He still won the Offensive Player of the Year. He came back this year, still a little nicked up. You know, it takes a while to get through that injury. Curtis Rourke is a gamer, full of moxie. Indiana, Wake Forest, whoever comes out of this, with Curtis Rourke, man, oh man, you got yourself a quarterback for 1 year. I think he has 1 year of eligibility remaining. So keep an eye on that, Wake Forest. Keep an eye on that, Indiana. Keep an eye on that battle. One more thing before we get to the North Carolina Chancellor, and then we'll get to Pete Thamel's filling in the blanks on his rankings. College football viewership by network. CBS, some cross-pollination between CBS, between SEC and Big Ten. Starting next year, CBS is going to be only holding Big Ten product, Big Ten content. Every afternoon, 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central Time, CBS, Big Ten. Fox comes in at 4.3 million. This is average. This is average. Okay? ABC, 3.95 million. NBC, 2.80 million. I think we're going to see that number jump next year. Washington and Oregon coming in. I think we're going to see more depth when it comes to prime, good games on NBC, CBS, and Fox for the Big Ten. ESPN, 1.96 million. Big Ten Network, 605,000 an average. We'll get back to that in a second. FS1, 587. The CW, this is a good number. This is a good first-year number for the CW. So ACC, I'm just saying, not bad. Not bad at all. ESPN2, 417,000. When people get used to the CW covering ACC content, I think this number might get a little higher. FS2, 171. NFL Network, 88. ESPNU, 65,000. This 605,000 for BTN, that's the highest number ever. Look, and this is coming at a time when there's less subscribers to the Big Ten Network, but yet the numbers keep increasing. So if you're subscribed to the Big Ten Network, you are watching this channel more than ever. And it's not just about football, it's about women's volleyball. So the Big Ten Network has got it going. Now Big Ten Network's going to be introduced in the city of Los Angeles at the highest level, right? Where, the subscriptions are going to be up there $1 whatever a month when you tally up when you cut up your whole streaming or cable bill. Big Ten Network now into Los Angeles in a way they weren't before, and of course in the state of Washington, in the state of Oregon. We'll see what those subscription numbers look like in 6 months from now, and we'll look at the average per game. Now, in regards, I see a couple questions on about the SEC network and the ACC network. They do not have their games measured by Nielsen. They opted not to do that. So we don't know what those numbers are. The Big Ten Network, for many years, did not have their games measured by Nielsen. Now they do. And I believe it's because the Big Ten Network is starting to pull in more and more ad money. That's becoming a more and more higher percentage of their revenue. And have Nielsen rating to show their national advertisers. This is really important for the Big Ten Network. SEC Network and the ACC Network have not decided to have their games rated by Nielsen. There was many years where I got into many battles on Twitter, X now that it's called, and people are saying that Big Ten Network numbers are so low that they're not even measured. And I always said it's because they choose not to have their games rated. Now they decided to have their games rated. So that's the difference. That is the difference. Now, let's get into, first of all, let's get into what I said, and I'm only going to go over this a minute here. Okay, so everybody who heard me a couple nights ago on this, it's going to be short and sweet. Actually, I talked about this last night on the live show. This is my Twitter account. I say decision on who replaces Kevin Gusowich as the next chancellor of North Carolina would demonstrate what faction at Chapel Hill actually has the power moving forward in making monumental realignment decision if one presents itself to the institution within the next couple of years. We talked about it on the live show last night. North Carolina is not aligned. The donors are not aligned. Now, I know that 100%. So, now, when you have a group of donors, you're never going to have 100% agreement, but they are divided. The board is divided. The fan base leans SEC. The leadership was leaning the Big Ten. Kevin Gusowich, we call him that he was a silent voice in support of the Big Ten. Never really came out in public, but we have enough information to know that he was a supporter if he was in the position to move North Carolina in the Big Ten. If that opportunity ever arose when he was in leadership, he was, if he ever did that, was going to have major pushback. Major pushback. That pushback on that issue was in a lot of other issues at North Carolina. Kevin Gusowich just left his position of chancellor at North Carolina. Now he's the Michigan State president. But, if he would have stayed, he might have been pushed out eventually here. There's a lot of backroom drama going on at North Carolina. So my point is, when this battle takes place, this is one of the most important. If you want to talk here at College Football's Peek Around the Corner, we gave you the peek on USC at Flood Empire on March 31st, 2022. We ran with that story for 3 months. You know the history of that story. We gave you the peek on Colorado. They were at the center of the stage in the Holy Smokes Theater alone. To get the idea of where eventually this is all going to shape up, we first have to crack the nut of North Carolina, and we can't do that because we don't know who their next chancellor is going to be. We don't know who's going to win that internal battle. But that is a big, big, big mystery in this long-running riddle that we are now on in. Look, Brian Murphy. Now, I said this 5:30, December 6th. I talked about this issue last night on the live show, December 7th. This morning, December 8th, Brian Murphy, the next North Carolina chancellor, may have to decide what athletic conference the Tar Heels play in. A move that could have huge implications for the university, the state, the ACC, and other UNC system schools, most notably North Carolina State, and its rivalry with Duke. No biggie. No biggie here, right? Look, the people who are going to make the decision on who the next chancellor of North Carolina is going to be, the people who actually get to push the candidates, the people who actually get to vote on it, the Board of Regents, and all the pressure that is put on the board, they know this. It's not just Brian Murphy. First of all, Brian Murphy is great, tremendous. We're going to be following his reports constantly for the next 4 months. At least the next 4 months. Going further than 4 months. But you think the fat guy from Minnesota who talked about on December 6th, Brian Murphy, December 8th, the people who can push their candidates, vote on the candidates for the next chancellor, do the background check on the candidate, they know this. They know this. So whoever gets the job, whoever is the next chancellor, I think we're going to be able to see breadcrumbs at the back of that chancellor leading to the faction who put that person in place. And then I think we'll have a good indication of where North Carolina sees themselves in the next 2, 3, 4 years. In regards to the Pete Thamel's ranking, I just want to put up another tweet, then we'll get right into it. Dan Wolken, Brian Murphy tweet, ESPN's Pete Thamel says expansion candidates rankings are number 1, North Carolina, number 2, Virginia, number 3 and 4, Florida State and Clemson. We're going to go over that story. We went over it in episode 341 earlier this morning. We're going to be doing it right now here in the monologue and the live show at December 8th. Dan Wolken tweets out, it's 100% right. If the SEC could pick 2 for its next expansion, I doubt it would be Clemson and Florida State. And look, I think most people agree with Wolken. Most people agree with Pete Thamel. It's just the timing of it. Pete Thamel talking about this once again, putting out there that they do not, Florida State and Clemson doesn't like to hear this. That's what he said on ESPN College Football Game Day podcast this morning. I had made an episode of it, 341. Take a listen to it. It's the timing of it. It's the way that Pete Thamel said it. It's just ESPN is not. They're being transparent in a sense of between Paul Feinbaum and everything that you saw leading up to the selection college football playoff selection show on ESPN, and now Pete Thamel being the other bookend. They're making perfectly clear what the SEC wants to do once the ACC implodes. Now, and I understand this when it's written on paper. I get it. We talked about it. We've been talking about this. North Carolina, Virginia are virgin grounds to the SEC, and they would be to the Big Ten. So if the SEC wants to expand by increasing their footprint, Virginia, North Carolina is the way to go. Now let's fill in the blanks, though. Let's get serious. Pete Thamel said what he had to say. A whole lot of people agree with him. On paper, I agree with Pete Thamel. But there are layers to this story. And Pete Thamel knows that. Everybody knows pretty much what I'm about to say. They're not quite reporting on some of it. We gave you the peak, how the importance of the North Carolina, the next chancellor. Brian Murphy now just talked about it. Other people are going to be talking about it in relation to conference realignment. We gave you another peek around the corner last night. And we're going to continue to do so. This right here is a big deal. VT, Virginia Tech, Va-Tech, however you want to say it, the Hokies, it's a big, big deal. We talked about it in the live show last night. It's not simply 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 1, 2, 2, 3, 4. We have been told, we talked about on the last show, we've been told it's almost inconceivable that Virginia is going to be able to go to the SEC of the Big Ten without Virginia Tech. And we asked the question, well, what if they made a deal? What if the SEC took Virginia and the Big Ten would take Virginia Tech? And the guy laughed at us. Not at me because I don't talk to him directly, but he laughed at one of our BTM associates. Says that's just not what's going to happen. In other words, the Big Ten and the SEC, they're not going to coordinate this. They haven't coordinated anything. Nothing. One of the reasons why these conferences keep getting bigger, because one fears the other for getting the bigger slice of the marketplace. That's a rabbit hole we're not going to go down to right now. But if, for example, Pete Thamel, let's just say he's 100% accurate. Let's just pretend. We're pretending here, everybody. Okay? Let's just pretend. North Carolina, Virginia. Florida State and Clemson make some declaration in the first quarter of 2024, which we think is going to happen, where they say it's our intentions to leave the ACC conference and be in a different conference in 2026, 2027. But we're going to file our notice of withdrawal before August 15th of 2024. Let's say they make that statement. Not knowing where they're going to go. Nothing official. They haven't officially. They just make a declaration. That's what we think is going to happen. And then North Carolina and Virginia says, oh my goodness. Now they call the SEC. And let's say the SEC says, yeah, well, North Carolina, they're our number one. Virginia is our number two. Virginia's going to be... Now, a lot of you are going to be thinking, well, Greg, you're naive. You're naive. This is not going to be worse than the UCLA, California, Berkeley split. And that's fine. You can have that opinion. I'm telling you, it's a very strongly held opinion. This is going to be much worse. Virginia, at some point, it's probably going to be right up front in the community. It's already probably happened. Cloak and dagger style. Indirect talks. Not direct talks, indirect talks, where Virginia has explained this situation to the SEC. It's going to be difficult for Virginia to go to the SEC without Virginia Tech. So while Virginia itself might be number two when it comes to priority value, the SEC sees that. To have to bring Virginia Tech changes the valuation of Virginia. So it's not as simple as 1, 2, 3, 4. None of this is simple. That's why I don't go out and say, I think these schools are going here, these schools are going there. Unlike what I did with Colorado when I said Colorado going to the Big 12, the chances, the odds, the sports books has Colorado the favorite. We said that all the way back in February 2023, months before it happened on June 27th, because we were getting so much information on it. This is completely different. There's so many different layers to this. Virginia's valuation changes if Virginia Tech comes with Virginia. It doesn't mean that SEC would not still be interested in Virginia. It just, from the information that we were given, and we were given time, space to poke and prod, to talk to an individual, the money perch, Virginia. He said, this is from Virginia's perspective, not even from Virginia Tech, where maybe they would have the incentive to say this to us. This is Virginia. They're saying, man, it would be a fight, a bloody knuckle fight to leave without Virginia Tech. And what was explained to us was, it's not going to be like the SEC is going to go, Virginia, we want you in North Carolina. And then Virginia says, look, we can't We're going to have to go through this long process. We don't know if we can leave without Virginia Tech. The Attorney General, the politicians of the state. The SEC and ESPN is not going to be on their phone calling the Big Ten and saying, oh, we're going to take Virginia. Can you make it easier for us and you take Virginia Tech? Fox and Big Ten, they're not going to do that. That's just not real. That's just not how things work between the SEC and the Big Ten, between Fox and ESPN. So this changes. Now, there was a couple reports. There was, I don't know if it was the News and Observer or some other newspaper out of Virginia. Somebody reported months ago about the comments of the Attorney General of Virginia, who said, yeah, look, one is not going to leave the other one. In other words, one of them is not going to go in conference realignment to the SEC without the other one having a home in the SEC of the Big Ten. He says that's not going to happen. We are well beyond that from the information that we have received. It's much more than just the Attorney General. This realignment is going to be different than the Texas and Oklahoma one, the USC and UCLA one, the Oregon and Washington one. This is going to be politicians are going to be heavily involved in this once the ACC implodes. So recently, nobody has really put out an article or reported on this. Not that I've seen. If you've seen it, send it to me on my Twitter account at FlugEmpire. But we're giving you the peak. Just like we gave you the peak. Just like we gave you the peak on this, on December 6th. And now other people are going to be talking about it. Brian Murphy, December 8th. We're giving you the peak on this dynamic. Virginia Tech. It's going to play a big part in this story. North Carolina, the battle of the new chancellor, who's going to be, that's a huge story. Virginia and Virginia Tech being tied at the hip, that's a huge story. So when Pete Thamel says these are the top four in expansion candidates for the SEC, keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. One of, how do I say this? Consider this. Go ahead and consider this speculation. It's more than speculation. I don't know how to label it, so I'm just going to tell you. We don't, as you know, a couple months ago, I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole. Pete Thamel, when he put out this, when he said it again, the top four expansion candidates for the SEC, the valuation, and this is not the first time this has been said. Paul Feinbaum, others have said this in different ways. They have said this. Today's and we're not saying that we have no idea. You know, Pete Thamel's a great reporter. I know a lot of people don't like him. A lot of Big Ten folks don't like him. Whatever. We think he's great. We don't know the motive why Pete Thamel said this. And he's just reporting the truth that he knows it. But we believe at Peek Around the Corner there is quite an aggressive move by the SEC when it comes to North Carolina. So when Pete Thamel is saying Florida State and Clemson don't like to hear this, and of course that gets the most play in regards to conference realignment, people paying attention to it, really, I believe the story that Paul Feinbaum and everybody else at ESPN are really telling is the story of North Carolina. I'm going to say this from a peek around the corner perspective, because we've been on this for months now. We're trying to give you the best peek around the corner. The Kevin Gusowich thing, leaving Chancellor in North Carolina, him just leaving his position to go to Michigan State is a victory for the SEC faction at UNC Chapel Hill. It just is. It's going to be mighty difficult for the people who want North Carolina to look at a Big Ten, being a Big Ten university. It's going to be more difficult for them to fill that spot up with another Kevin Gusowich. ESPN, once again, being pretty visible, saying that North Carolina is the top of their expansion candidate. Not the first time they said it, but again, they said it today. Between the powers that be at North Carolina, between some of the donors are against this, but some of the donors, the Board of Regents, the fan base, ESPN, Gusowich is out the door. He's at a Big Ten university. The power play, the cloak and dagger is on. It's on. I'm telling you, it's on. SEC is going to do whatever they can, pull every lever they can. They've got a lot of levers, SEC and ESPN, to circle their wagons, to make sure that North Carolina is going to be in SEC country here in the near future. That is our strong take on it. A couple months ago, we talked about the Holy Smokes Theater. We know that there's a couple donors, more than one. Couple donors. We know them by name. We know that they want to invest. They want North Carolina to be a Big Ten university. They're important donors. They're outnumbered. They're important ones. I got to be careful how I say this, but 7 years from now, they see North Carolina with the Division I men's, Division I women's hockey program. They see North Carolina being a more international institution, being the Big Ten National Conference. But we use North Carolina basketball terms. SEC is putting on the full court press on North Carolina. They are. So that is filling in the blanks when it comes to North Carolina, Virginia, and Virginia Tech. Even, it's so when Pete Thamel says these are the top four, yes, but there are layers to the story. There's hurdles to the story. SEC, I think there's a power play, cloak and dagger being moved here. There are definitely cloak and dagger moves being made. Going to try to secure a pro-SEC chancellor at Chapel Hill. So keep an eye on that story. And then the whole Virginia Tech. We're going to be seeing reports on that soon. Florida State and Clemson. It's just another reminder, right? Just another reminder. We believe in the first quarter of 2024, while North Carolina and Virginia, for obvious reasons, might not be ready might not even be close to being ready to declare their intentions. We believe Florida State and Clemson will be ready to declare their intentions. Not where they're exactly going, but they declare their intentions to lead the conference by such and such a date. There's going to be some announcement. We've been getting told this. We've been reporting to you in the first quarter of 2024. We started that report December 26, 2022, and it has not changed. It hasn't changed. That has to mean something. So Florida State and Clemson, the most ready to go, the most willing to go, the most motivated to go, and they are the most aligned to go. So as we said in our live show last night, this might not be just one wave of everybody bull rushing the ACC declaring their intentions. It might not be Florida State, we see breaking news. Then the next day, Clemson, we see breaking news. It might not be followed up with North Carolina and Virginia on the third and fourth day or the third and fourth week. That might not happen. That's what we were told by the Virginia Money Purge, and that's what we told you last night, and we're telling you again today. There's obvious reasons for it. So we're just giving you that peek. We believe here at Peek Around the Corner, there's going to be a rejuvenation of articles and reports about Virginia and Virginia Tech. And we believe people are going to really continue. Brian Murphy just started it. There's going to be others. We started on December 6th, but you get the point. There's going to be main college football reporters talking about the internal battle at North Carolina. And the result of who the new chancellor is going to be is going to tell a large part of the story. It's going to be, what is it, rule number 2? Rule number 2 in realignment. The big dominoes fall first. The North Carolina domino. Okay, let me get to your comments. Let me get to your phone calls. You can talk about anything in college football. Army, Navy on Saturday. FCS quarterfinals this weekend. Portal news, Riley Leonard. What is going on with Riley Leonard? Is he going to Notre Dame or not? What's happening? So give us a phone call. 763-260-1333. Phone lines are now. Hold on, everybody. Hold on. I don't have it open yet. I screwed up. The host screwed up again. 763-260-1333. The lines are now open. One other thing. Early peak membership. I believe I successfully, I'm not sure, but I believe for the first time I successfully put a link in the description. If you hit that link, it's easy to join early peak membership, be an early peak member. College football's early peak. You get episodes, membership only, the early intel, the early information being dropped in on just about everything in college football. All right, so let me know in the chat, by the way, if there's a link, if it works, if it goes to our YouTube channel where you can easily join early peak. Now, Mike Smith, it's funny, these conference networks, the fans want them, but the teams don't want to play of them. Most of the time, it's the game nobody wants to see. What it does, okay, for like football and stuff, mostly it's the games, the lower tier games, not always. Sometimes you get a big game on the Big Ten Network, especially later in the year. But but you get more juice out of that turnip. You get more value. The conference gets more value. Bundling up third-tier content in the conference network gets more money out of those games. Plus, of course, college athletics is more than football, more than basketball. The Big Ten Network has been an absolute key driver to the success of the Big Ten's women's volleyball. It exploded the sport. It's in the Big Ten, now the Big Ten dominates a sport that they didn't used to because of the Big Ten Network. SEC Network has done the same thing for SEC baseball. Now, baseball was dominated by, Big 12 teams, Texas teams, SEC teams, but it's created more value for the SEC baseball teams because of the SEC Network. So they do have a benefit if you can get them off the ground, right? If you can get them off the ground. The one big difference between Big Ten Network and the SEC Network, Big Ten Network and the ACC Network is the Big Ten Network. The Big Ten schools own a slice of the Big Ten Network. So, not much of a slice, but they do own a slice.
Call from.
Hello.
Hey,
The
sir, how
floor
you
is
doing?
yours.
Did I catch you in the middle of something?
No. Oh, is this JD?
It is. Yes,
Oh,
sir.
got it. I'm sorry. I did not get your name on that. Thank you, JD, for calling. The floor is yours, sir. What do you got to say?
Quick question. If FSU is ready to go, but they don't necessarily, let's just say the Big Ten doesn't want Clemson, okay? And both are ready to go, but they only want FSU. Do they have to have a travel partner, or is there a scenario where they add FSU and then they add another one later?
Well, they don't have to have a travel partner. They don't have to have a travel partner. They
Okay.
No, they could work around a 19-team no, they don't have to have even numbers. I mean, the Big Ten had I know it's a different era, but the Big Ten had 11 members with Penn State for a long time before they went to a 12th member, Nebraska. The Big Ten Hockey Conference, the men's hockey conference, has 7 members. And that's terrible for hockey. I'm not going to go into the reasons why, but having an even number of teams in your conference is so much easier for a hockey conference because they play multiple games on the weekend. But yet that 8th candidate hasn't been really there for the Big Ten. So the Big Ten is willing to go with 19, my belief, if the 20th isn't of enough value or is not ready or is not willing at the time.
Okay. Well, that was my curiosity. I didn't know if it had to be going forward. I didn't know if it needed to be even numbers and in a particular number or anything like that. I hear things that Clemson is valued by the Big Ten, and then I hear other times that they're not. I mean, we don't know. I mean, we're not privy to those conversations. Or you also see that Clemson desires the Big Ten, or they're going to hold out for the SEC. But from what you've reported and the things that we're hearing today, it's pretty clear that the SEC is just trying to shake the tree and is trying to incentivize, North Carolina, like you said.
Yes, sir.
Incentivize North Carolina to let's move. That they're not going to sit around and wait and then hopefully they get a chance at North Carolina. They're trying to broker the deal and push them out the door now so that they're available for the SEC.
Yeah, I mean, like North Carolina's not going to be ready for a while.
Sure.
So I think SEC and ESPN have done a job of making sure that North Carolina is in their sights. even though they're not ready. They're not going to be ready. They're not going to be like where, at least we don't believe so. Not going to be where Clemson and Florida State is in the month of January, February, and March of next year.
Sure.
They don't even have a chancellor. Let's see how long it takes for them to get their chancellor. And then more importantly, JD, who is going to be that chancellor? So.
Well, we think it's going to take a long time, but when FSU and Clemson do announce, there's going to be a panic, for sure. And the timeline on these universities is going to accelerate. Now, you see the rumors that the ACC and the Big 12 are now considering collaborating. And of course, that was inevitable. But I don't really ever the word, or let me rephrase it. Anything concerning the ACC being proactive, you have to just look at with a side eye, because like they
can I? They're not. The ACC is not in position to get any arrangement with the Big 12 right now. I am not a believer of any of that information. Just to let you know, this ACC is not even. They moved mountains to make sure that they were able to select their backfill once Florida State, Clemson, and possible other schools leave. They had to move mountains. They moved a lot of. Jim Phillips had a how do I say this? A lot of IOUs, a lot of political capital was spent. A lot of stuff was spent getting that done. And that did not hurt, as we reported at Peek Around the Corner before it happened. That did not hurt the exit ramps of Florida State and Clemson. None of that hurt what Florida State and Clemson has planned. But still, to get that pushed through, with Notre Dame's help, of course, to get that backfield done, Jim Phillips is not going to go to his presidents now and say, "Oh, by the way, we're going to, do something more with the Big 12 right now." And maybe some scheduling stuff, but beyond that, there's nothing going on between those two conferences besides the scheduling.
I really wouldn't see an advantage to it.
No.
I mean, but it's just, when panic sets in and you realize, Sunday opened up a lot of eyes for people that were just in denial. They just weren't. They just, oh no, we'll match up, real well against those other two, and you really realize how quickly you got shut out, and now they realize it's not going to be much different moving forward.
No.
And as FSU people, we're just like, man, we just get us out, and whatever, just get us out. And so it just, we know if you look back over the last 2 years where we were then and now, things by the old standard have moved at such an accelerated pace, but it's still not quick enough for us, but we just got to get going, I guess is how you phrase. But anyway, that was all. I had that question. That was the burning question on all these conversations about, it's almost everywhere you hear, you hear that the Big Ten is definition FSU, but it's mixed on Clemson, and then they're the only other ones ready to leave. And do you have to go as a pair? And I appreciate you answering that question.
Yeah, and to answer it, there is obvious interest from the Big Ten to Clemson. How does Clemson stack up? And of course, it gets to availability. It gets to a lot of different things, right? Then it comes down to the Big Ten presidents. But there's definite interest.
Sure.
And again, I keep going back to Brett McMurphy, but he has said it over and over again. So if you don't want to believe him, that's up to you. But Clemson is definitely of interest to the Big Ten and
Well,
and to the SEC.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yep.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm
No,
sorry.
go ahead. Go ahead.
The only thing I was going to throw out there was when I see a Brett McMurphy or somebody like that report, I've always taken as though they're just reporting what they're hearing and they're reporting the news. I have noticed that ESPN reporters will, report the company line when necessary and when asked. And that's why, is Pete Thamel reputable? Of course he is. He's a very reputable person.
Mm-hmm.
But I've also seen him report things that I know aren't factually correct, and I know he was asked to do so. And it's in ESPN's best interest. Nothing extremely inflammatory, nothing like that. But it's just, I've seen things that I'm like, that's just not true. That's just not true. And so, anyway.
You got it.
I don't know, but that was all. That was all. It was just a little too much to throw in the chat to ask that question. It was going to be a novel, so I figured I'd call in to ask the question.
Thanks for the call, Mr. Seminole JD. Appreciate it. You have a good one, sir.
Right, good night. Thank you. All right, bye-bye.
Mr. Seminole JD, I mean, we're talking about this. We're reporting on it. We're going to the Holy Smokes Theater. We're trying to paint a picture. We're poking and prodding every day. We got some really good information. But to be a Seminole fan, to be a Florida State fan, that's a whole different, you're sitting there. You want something to happen. Thank you, Bull Stacker, for being a new member of the Early Peak membership. You are Cloak and Dagger Knighted. Thank you, Mr. Bull Stacker. Bo, if you're still in the chat, let me know. Did you get it did you go to the join button by the link I provided in the description? I'm just wondering if that worked. It's the first time I've done that. Just want to know if it worked out for you or anybody else. But thank you, Bo Stacker, for your generosity to the channel. Thank you so very much. Yes, I used the link. Good. God, I did something right. For the first time in a long time, I did something right here in the studio at Peek Around the Corner. Ryan Willie, thank you for the super chat. I think the college football playoffs will expand to 16 in the 4 years. I got a feeling that you're going to be correct, Ryan. I'm not completely sold on it. I think a lot of it has to do with how 2024 goes, right? 2025, the decision might have to be made before the 2025 playoffs start. So how does next year look? What happens? Of course, the money, right? The money, that's 15 playoff games. And of course, if you go to 16 teams in the college football playoffs, that does grease the skids for the Big Ten to go to 20, for the Big Ten to go to 22, for SEC to go to 20, for the Big 12 to go past 16, to go to 20 if possible. It does grease the skids for a larger super conference. Thank you so much, Ryan, for the super chat. I appreciate it.
Call from
Crab cakes and football.
Crab cakes and football. Can you just hold 1 second, sir?
Yes, sir.
I appreciate it. I want to get to Ryan Willie's next super chat. Thank you so much, Ryan. Are UNC and Duke joined at the hip? No, they are not. If anybody is joined at North Carolina's hip, it's North Carolina State. Now, and if you want evidence of that, Go see the list of who was in the Magnificent Seven schools that were meeting in secret, cloak and dagger style. It was Clemson, Florida State, Miami, Virginia Tech, North Carolina, and North Carolina State. Politically, again, I'm warning everybody. I've given you all a few peeks. I'm going to continue to say this more than ever in this realignment wave. Whenever it pops off, the politicians are going to be involved. And I'm not saying they weren't involved. Everybody can come up with stories, politicians being involved in other realignments. This one, the politicians are going to be involved because it's worth so much more. Because of this consolidation, big money, the change in sports, revenue sharing student athletes, you can go on and on and on and on. Why the reasons why the politicians are going to get more involved. But yeah, so if anybody's joined at the hip with North Carolina, it's North Carolina State, not Duke. That is my strongly held opinion, Ryan. Thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it so very much. Crab Cakes and Football. Thank you for your patience. Mr. Terrapin, the floor is yours.
Hey, is anybody starting to get burnout on conference realignment yet?
Yes.
I was just wondering because this is getting crazy.
But let me tell you something though. Just gonna put out a warning. This is just the start. This is going to be a long story, and we got to cover it here at Peek Around the Corner because it's so important to just about everybody. So go ahead. The floor is yours. I apologize for interrupting.
No problem. That Pete Thamel thing, he did say one thing that did, what happens when like Florida State, Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, USC, name said school here wants unequal distribution of money. I mean, that eventually is going to happen if you get too big.
And we covered that in episode 341 this morning. We talked about it.
Oh, we did? I missed it.
That was one of the bullet points, Pete Thamel, saying, it's hard to keep these big conferences together because it's hard for the commissioner to work towards the interest of everybody in that conference, even though there's a lot of commonality in the Big Ten. The universities are different. The athletic departments are different. Some are way bigger than others. And is Ohio State going to be okay with having the same media money going in their coffers than, say, in Indiana, Michigan, and Northwestern, Alabama, and Vanderbilt? Those are the examples that Pete Thamel gave in the podcast this morning. Those are all great points. The bigger the conference, the easier the fracture. And that is why the number one rule in realignment is realignment never sleeps. But go ahead, back to you.
Oh, no problem. So I'm have the hard-held opinion that I think the ESPN Florida State relationship is beyond repair, because even if so I don't know if the SEC, as long as they're with ESPN, which is going to be forever, would be able to really do anything to apologize or whatever to Florida State and make their fan base happy. I don't know if that's true or not, but I know if it was, me being a Maryland fan, when we left the ACC, we were like, good riddance, goodbye, see you later, we're done, peace out. And that's the way we've lived it. And that's just with a conference. That wasn't even with a TV partner. This is a TV partner that, in my opinion, whether some people agree or disagree, it's only one or two ways to look at it, got screwed over by, because they own the rights to the CFP and everything else. So they chose the four they wanted, left Florida State out, and I don't think Florida State is going to want to do business with ESPN anytime soon. Maybe that's over-rational or maybe a little bit too, what word am I looking for there? Too petty, but $6 million plus that they lost on that particular decision, right or wrong, it hurt. So, and then with the North Carolina, I'm worried that they're going to make a big mistake. I'm worried that they're actually going to get forced into going over in the SEC. There's nothing about North Carolina that says SEC. Everybody joked about Maryland saying, "Oh, we're not a Big Ten school." Well, we know how that feels. So now there's nothing about North Carolina that screams SEC. They have Big Ten written all over them, image-wise. But between the sports they play and the academics and everything else, so I really hope they get a chancellor that is willing to stand up and try to get them into the Big Ten if there's ever a conference going. And third, I heard that Florida State and Miami, aren't they kind of sort of joined at the hip in your opinion?
Nope. No.
No? I
mean,
would think they would be like big brother, little brother.
Well, they might be, the Big Ten might be, they're definitely interested in both. It's been reported as such. But when I mean by tied at the hip, I'm talking about like where it's going to be more difficult to separate one from the other, not because they share a history together or they share a value together, they have a big rivalry together. I'm talking about, when I talk about tied at the hip, I'm talking about politically it's going to be hard to dislodge one from the other. And we've been told that the University of Berkeley, California and the UCLA is child's play compared to what's going to happen if the SEC, ESPN wants to have Virginia, but not have Virginia Tech follow along. It's going to be even bigger problem.
Because I'm speaking very biasly on this next thing. No. SEC can have Virginia. I don't. They can have Virginia. Virginia Tech's pretty cool, but they can have Virginia. But no, if FSU jumps. And we can get Clemson, take it. If FSU jumps and we can get Miami instead of Clemson, I would take it. And UNC is obviously the big dog, but if they do go to the SEC, I think that's a big mistake. So that's my take on that one. So, all right, man, I got to go back to work, and
okay. You got it. Crab cakes and football.
So I'll listen to you.
Got it. Beautiful.
All right, man. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Great call. Great call. Go Black 45. So Greg, earlier realignment line was about brands and rivals matter. Now it's about new markets only. Nothing is only. None of this is only. It's not markets only. It's not brands only. It's not rivals only. Rivals is a huge part of it. Huge part of it. Brands is a huge part of it. But when you're talking about a one region conference, the SEC, right? They don't want to go beyond their region, but yet they're looking for to make their footprint bigger. If that's the number one priority, SEC's already loaded up with rivalries. They're already loaded up with brands, but they might want a bigger footprint, and Virginia, North Carolina is the perfect solution for that. That's why.
Call from
Immaculate.
Mr. Hawkeye is on the line. The floor is yours.
Oh, you don't need me to hold up for a little bit?
No, I don't think so. No.
Okay, well,
no.
I was just calling in so we could get some breaking news. So,
Oh, I don't have any. I'll look for it, but I don't have any, sir.
So
I'm looking for Riley Leonard breaking news. I'm looking for Kyle McCord breaking news. Is Kyle McCord going to Nebraska? Is Riley Leonard going to Notre Dame? But not
I hope he goes to
right
Nebraska.
Now.
Then both Iowa and Nebraska can have has-beens from Michigan and Ohio State during our rivalry game. But, no, I think that'd be a good spot for him. I mean, he wasn't good enough for what OSU needs to do, but I think that he'd be a good fit for what Nebraska would need of him.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wish we were in the search. I wish there was some news about Iowa, something about an OC, something about – I just keep seeing there all these other announcements. I'm just like, yep, there we go. We're not even in the search, even though we need an offensive coordinator. So but that's a whole different different argument. In terms of realignment, whew, you have opened up something here, haven't you?
Yes, and I got a feeling that there's going to be more articles written about the chancellorship at North Carolina and the Virginia Tech situation. But just giving everybody a peek, but I think that's going to be hitting pretty hard here soon.
Yeah, it's interesting if, some of the arguments, and I've been having some conversations with folks about how Florida State could actually do this. And one thing I guess I'll say is if there are politicians getting involved, not that I think what they're talking about doing is really even going to be all that effective, but it generally means that people with money are pushing them. And if people with money are pushing them, those are Florida State people. Who else is going to do it? So if Florida State people with money are willing to push politicians to talk about doing stuff that's probably going to have little to no effect, what are they willing to do for something that'll have a lot of an effect? You know what I'm saying here?
Absolutely.
So that's what I see when I see the politicians. I'm like, whatever, don't care what they have to say. All I know is the fact that they're saying something means someone with a lot of money has pushed them to do so. And so this really makes me think that Florida State's on the verge. And for anyone who wanted Florida State in the SEC, I was with you in terms of thinking that that's where they're going. But if this is happening sooner rather than later, I don't see Florida State picking the SEC. Like in the middle of all of this, you know how much flack they would get for that?
Well, I agree, except now we could end up being wrong here at Pico on the Corner. But when it comes to the next event of this, and it's already been a long story, it's going to get much longer. But the next big event is, and we could be wrong, okay? But we've been told differently. What we've been told is the exact same thing we were told in December 2022. The next big event is probably not going to be Florida State saying we're going here or Clemson saying we're going there. I think the next big event is we're leaving. This is our intention. This is what we want. This is how it's going to happen. So when we say things are going to happen real soon, maybe we're wrong. Maybe Florida State says, yeah, we're leaving and we're going here and we're starting in this conference. So there might be a gap of time before this, if we're correct, this declaration of intentions of leaving the ACC. Then there's going to be some space, time, maybe some resolution, maybe some healing between SEC, ESPN, and Florida State. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, again, we might be wrong, though.
No,
we don't think the next event is the declaration of where somebody's going.
If the Big Ten says that they were not going to make any deals with anyone that's still caught up in previous deal. And one thing that, kind of an out there theory that still kind of sparked my imagination is, when we were talking back in the day, it wasn't that long ago, but back in the day about the Magnificent Seven, one of the things that might happen is a breakaway temporary conference. All they'd need is 8. Magnificent Seven was 7. Add 1 to that. I don't know, Louisville. Okay, we're done. If they had some type of a breakaway thing, they could handle the situation. And if they're all already kind of got their rights granted, I don't know how that works out business-wise in terms of getting the money for it, but that could be enough to basically cause the ACC situation to break down. It would certainly spark renegotiations with the ESPN. And with the new contract there, that sparks a new Gore, which voids the old Gore, which means they're free and clear. But, in order to do that, they have to know that they have a home somewhere else. That's a temporary thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Just, some type of temporary outlet to go to where they could at least work with their scheduling. I don't know. But, if they do something that basically causes ESPN to have to move on the ACC, I think that's where their best bet is. But that whole threat of them getting the government involved and they move and leave, the ACC sues them, and then the state, comes out and defends them, that could get into some massive problems. I mean, now you're talking about, okay, well, what about the other states? Do they come in defense of their schools? That cause this to go to the Supreme Court? I mean, I don't think anyone wants that. So, I don't know. Hopefully, we get settlements. But as we've seen with the PAC, former heads don't always prevail.
No, you're right.
So it's not a guarantee that the rational, logical decision of coming to some kind of settlement would actually happen. I don't know how it works, but you got me looking elsewhere.
I don't think anyone knows how it's going to work. I mean, there's so many variables to this. It's one part of the story, Immaculate, that I would not have guessed it was going to be there if you and I had this conversation 2 years ago. The part is where the ACC schools that do not have the ability, they're not going to have the opportunity to jump to the Big Ten of the Big Ten of the SEC, that these schools, because of what happened to the Pac-12, what almost happened to the Big 12, if they would have lost that fight with the Pac-12.
They were ready to.
Yeah, they could have lost that if they didn't get Brett Yormark. Security, man. This Pac-12, what just happened, is got to be a shot towards the ACC schools to say, look, if the deal is laid out in front of us, we get a whole lot of bags of cash, we get autonomy status going forward. We might have to take this deal that a Florida State, a Clemson, a North Carolina is going to present. And that, Immaculate, is not a conversation I would have had with you 2 years ago. So things have already sort of changed. And what is the conversation 2 months from now that we don't think is going to happen, like we wouldn't say today? So
we don't even have to go that far back. I remember when the PAC thing was just brewing up, and I was saying to you, it was like, we also got to keep an eye on the ACC thing. I think that this is brewing under the surface, and and no one even really wanted to have that conversation then, because it was like, out there. Like, I don't know. And we've come a long way in a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
And so, I know we say a lot of things, and people are like, oh, that's impossible. And I'm just kind of nodding my head and going, okay.
Yeah.
We'll see. I mean, I don't have the answers, and you don't have the answers on how this happens. I just think that the forces at work are pushing this to happen. We were talking about natural, market conditions.
Yeah.
The big things, and everyone is, you either swim upstream or you swim downstream. Which way do you want to go? One way is a lot easier. So you can constantly fight against the stream and the current and go in a certain direction.
That's a great way of putting it.
But eventually you're going to get tired. And, the talk about, they're going to go till 2036 with this. Are you kidding me? These are real people. You think they want to deal with these headaches every year? Look at this. Look at how this is played out. You think these people really want to do this for, what is that, 12 years?
Yeah.
No, they don't. Like, people in charge are dealing with this. This is such a massive headache for all of them. So much stress. I would have a hard time believing that it lasts that long, but I don't know how it comes to be. So, with that being said, like I said, I'm real interested to see who might be able to do this with Florida State and who the Big Ten would be willing to help do it. And I can't get my head wrapped around Clemson. I know a lot of people like it. I just can't see it. I see something like Florida State, Georgia Tech being the more USC, UCLA type of move. I don't know. We'll see.
Yep.
All right. Good show. Appreciate
right,
it again.
man.
As always, got to run.
Thank you, Matt.
We might
Appreciate
be
it.
doing a sneak show tonight if folks are interested. I'm not sure yet, but yeah, a lot of fun stuff to talk about. Have yourself a good night, man.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Great call by Mr. Hot Guy Immaculate. John Dry. Florida State and Clemson are not AAU status. And I don't think it matters. I just don't think it matters. It matters, but it doesn't matter. It's just, the whole AAU thing for me has been and I've talked about this before. Nothing against you, John Dry, or anybody else in the chat. It's just has been overused a million times. And I used to fight this battle at Peek Around the Corner, at Flug Empire. John Delaney was a Big Ten commissioner for 25 years, and he said, AAU first, but not only. Kevin Warren said AAU status is not a prerequisite for being an expansion candidate of the Big Ten. AAU is a private club, and the AAU is not going to hold the veto pen over possible Big Ten expansion candidates. Just not. AAU is basically a shorthand way of saying pretty big and important research university. But there are successful research universities that are not AAU. If Texas and Oklahoma together on a phone call, they called Greg Sankey. But if together on a phone call they would have called the Big Ten would have accepted Texas and Oklahoma together, even though Oklahoma is not AAU. They would have. Of course they would have. Notre Dame wasn't the only exception. Now Notre Dame's AAU. And the Big Ten has, they have a precedent for accepting a non-AAU school. We've talked about that, the history of Michigan State. When Big Ten wanted to expand, University of Minnesota took the Michigan State cause. They were the leader of pushing Michigan State. Michigan didn't want Michigan State in the Big Ten. Michigan led the Pittsburgh cause. It was Minnesota, Michigan State versus Michigan and Pittsburgh. Minnesota just pushed Michigan State over the finish line, just barely, by a vote. Michigan State was added to the Big Ten Conference. 8 years later, after Michigan State joined the Big Ten, Michigan State became AAU. Florida State not being AAU, it's not going to matter. If Florida State finds a way out of the ACC, if Florida State is there, if Fox wants them, they do. They get the Big Ten president's votes, which they would. Does the Ohio State Buckeyes want Florida State? Because Ohio State's calling the shots on this, and they do. AAU status is not going to matter. It just isn't going to matter. And people are going to disagree with me. That's fine. I've been down that. I have fought the good fight on that issue. Florida State does not have to be voted in by a private organization before they would join the Big Ten if the Big Ten wants them. That's just not the real world. Joe Z, early peak member. Even Kevin Warren said AAUs isn't going to stop one from joining. The Big Ten does want big research universities into the conference. That's the commonality. That's what's going to hold the conference together if it holds for another 100 years, like it has. Conferences that have commonality between the universities are more united. Their interests are met easier by the leadership of the conference. It's the ACC does have no commonality among themselves. And the Pac-12 should have diversified themselves a little bit. They were too rigid, the Pac-12. They should have went into the Central Time Zone. They should have scooped up some Big 12 schools long before the Big 12 cracked open the Pac-12. If the Big Ten has the opportunity to get in the state of Florida, if Fox Sports, besides UCF, if Fox Sports has the opportunity to get in the state of Florida with Florida State, they're taking it. They're running with it. Phone lines are open, 763-260-1333. And again, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe to the channel, get yourself notified. Hit the notification bell. Make sure you're universally notified that when we come on live, you will get a notice, because we come on live at any time. In the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening. We can come on twice a day. Breaking news in college football. Check out College Football's Peek Around the Corner, because we're probably going on live. And please smash the like button. It helps us with the algorithm of YouTube so very much. If you do not like the content we are presenting, please hit the thumbs down button. I believe we are the only college football YouTube channel that asks you to hit the thumbs down button and let me know in the chat or with a tweet or a post on X at Flug Empire to let us know how we can better present college football content to you. And if you want to become a college football early peak member, episode member only, being dropped a couple times a week, giving you the very first look, the very first taste, the very first peek of information given to us in regards to realignment, recruiting, transfer portal, coaches, hot rumors, stadium renovations. Go to the link provided in the description and become an early peak member. There's just one level of membership. It's very easy to do. $5.99 a month. Become an early peak, cloak and dagger, early peak member. Hit the join button. We do have, I believe it's Furnham in Montana tonight. Montana looking for an FCS championship. That crowd is going to be hot. Furman at Montana tonight. I think it's 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Central, 6 o'clock Pacific. More importantly, 7 o'clock Mountain Time. I believe that's what Montana's in. I'm not sure. I am not sure. Again, the phone lines are open. 763-260-1333. We have breaking news. We have breaking news here at Peek Around the Corner. Pete Thamel, former Baylor quarterback Blake Shapen, has committed to Mississippi State. He tells ESPN. Shapen started 23 games for the Bears.
Call from.
No one.
I'm sorry, did not get your name.
It's Mo and Greg. How you doing?
Oh, Moen, I did not hear it. Breaking news, Blake Shapen committed to Mississippi State. I liked Blake Shapen a couple years ago when he had some playing time for Baylor, but it hasn't gone too well the last couple years. Moen, Mr. Buckeye, the floor is yours.
Yeah, Greg. Saw your piece on Virginia Tech. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
I want to put this theory out there. What do you think about Virginia Tech, North Carolina State all going to the SEC?
I think
Everybody's tied at the hip.
I think that's one of the many possibilities that are alive and well. I would not discount that if that's what needs to be done for the SEC, and it might need to be done. To be honest with you,
Right. And then the Big Ten can take Florida State and Clemson, and both of them can be happy at 20 for at least a little while. Until the ACC can rebuild with Rice and Tulane and all those schools.
I would, I would consider all that viable. The whole Rice thing, the ACC, I don't know. I people keep bringing that up, and maybe, but don't you think there's more viable candidates for the ACC to backfill?
I think Oregon State and Washington State would be the top two.
Yeah, and then Tulane, right?
They add more West. Yeah, and then Tulane. You add more West Coast travel partners. I put this forth before it can become the All Coast Conference. You have Gulf Coast schools, Atlantic Coast schools, and Pacific Coast schools. But yeah, they need more travel partners out west. They need to backfill. So I think, adding an Oregon State, a Washington State, a Tulane. And then, yeah, I know Rice is another team in Texas, but Texas is a big state with a lot of recruiting footprint.
Yeah.
So you might want to get another team in Texas. So you take Rice, and that gives you 4 more additions that you could take to replace those 4 that left. That leaves 2 more. I don't know who you would really get. Maybe a San Diego State, maybe a Memphis, maybe a UConn. At that point, UConn would be a good add for the ACC.
Yeah.
But
I
don't know, Greg, but it's just interesting that Virginia and Virginia Tech are tied at the hip, and North Carolina State are tied at the hip.
Yeah, I think North Carolina has a lot of sway. We've talked about that before. The information that we put out yesterday in a story that we worked on for 5 days was really separated from the North Carolina State. We never even hit upon that subject. So I don't know. I mean, obviously people have written about it. We reported it. We've talked about it, Moen, about North Carolina State having a lot of sway in the capital of North Carolina. But I don't know if they're tied up the hip as what we were told and explained about Virginia and Virginia Tech. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. We just don't have the information on that like we do now with Virginia and Virginia Tech.
Yeah, it's an interesting theory. I'm sure it's something we'll be talking about later tonight.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to put that out there, Greg, and say no future big expansion without Florida State.
You're beautiful, Moen. Mr. Buckeye, thanks for the call, sir.
We'll see you later, Greg.
You got it. So, breaking news. College football, Blake Shapen has committed to Mississippi State. Started 23 games for the Baylor Bears over 3 seasons. throwing for 5,500 yards, 36 career touchdowns. So
Call from
Kevin.
Kevin, thanks for calling. The floor is yours.
Hey, Greg, how you doing this wonderful day?
Doing good. It's a wonderful day. Yes, it is. It's a wonderful day because we're talking college football.
And it is certainly different than it was 10, 20 years ago, correct?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes. Yes.
I know we're talking about, and I see your list, your North Carolina, Virginia, Virginia Tech. I guess you could throw North Carolina State up there, too, possibly with North Carolina, Florida State, and Clemson. Those 6 leave, and let's say they go where the projection would be Big Ten, SEC. Even though you added California, SMU, and Cali, or Stanford, to pick up those other brands you're talking about, the ACC, ESPN would renegotiate that. I don't think they make as much money as the Big 12 would. I would think Miami, Louisville, Pittsburgh, and maybe Georgia Tech would be great candidates because of the backyard rivalry with Pitt and West Virginia. You'd bring in Miami for a travel partner for UCF. You'd bring in Georgia Tech in the South, and then you'd bring in Louisville, who has some of the better eyeballs in the ACC when you look at the numbers. Those 4 would probably want to come to the Big 12. They'd make more money on that contract than a negotiated ACC with East Carolina, Memphis, Tulane. I just don't see that happen. I would see some of those other teams wanting to bolt to the Big 12.
I agree with you. The only real advantage that the ACC schools would have over the Big 12 in this scenario that you're talking about is the ACC network. That is the advantage, the third tier contract that's tied with the ACC versus the Big 12 now at ESPN Plus. That's the only advantage that the remaining ACC schools would have. Excuse me. I agree with you. I think the Big 12 would eat off the ACC plate instead of the other way around. Also, you got to factor in it's when if you would have what you just described, the scenario of those 6 schools, or just maybe 4 of these schools, just the inertia of it, just the shot to the solar plexus that the ACC would take, would probably create more. You know how it is. It's just the confusion. Nobody trusting the other one. Would Louisville trust Pittsburgh that they wouldn't call the Big 12? All that plays a factor in it as well. I agree with you. I believe that would be the next phase of this big story, long story, if it plays out like you just said. The first part.
The other thing is, when you look at Washington State and Oregon State, if you look at the numbers, I live in Arizona, but if you look at those numbers, Washington State gets pretty good eyeballs in the Pac-12 versus Oregon State. I mean, Washington State, even though they're in the dungeon right now, they actually are probably the better of those two as far as eyeballs go. It's a shame Washington State may be relegated to the Mountain West when they would probably fit in pretty good with the Big 12. I know Moen and you guys had just talked about having Oregon State and Washington State be grabbed to the ACC if these teams departed to create a bigger West Wing for Stanford and Cal. But I'd be curious to see what Notre Dame would do if they lost these 6 teams to the ACC.
Yeah, well, that's a whole nother part of it, isn't it? I mean, Notre Dame's scheduling agreement with the ACC, would that stay, the 5 games, and that would be devalued greatly. NBC, I think, would see that as being devalued. That's a whole nother, thing. Notre Dame reports that they've got a new media contract with NBC that's going to go to 2029. Now that the perception is out there that Notre Dame is going to stay independent with their football program staying independent for at least a few more years, Now that kind of makes Florida State and Clemson even focus more on what they're about to do, we believe, in the first quarter of 2024, declaring their intentions on something, leaving the ACC, because Notre Dame leaving first doesn't seem to be part of the game plan anymore for Florida State and Clemson. It sounds like Notre Dame's going to stick around with their football independent for at least a few more years, so that might have changed the equation for Florida State and Clemson here in the last few weeks.
Yeah, the thing is Notre Dame still has Stanford and Cal in the ACC. And Stanford, they like to schedule every year, and they could get a second Cal if they can get Cal, and USC continues to get Notre Dame. Well, they got 3 games right there, and they always like to have Army or Navy. There's 5. They could still get Boston College as their Catholic rival, so they're going to get 6, 7 games that they want anyway. Correct? So
yeah.
Anyway, it's a fly. This whole thing is a cluster. So
yeah, it is, and it's going to be a long. It's not going to. Once this next phase starts, and we think it's going to be first quarter 2024 with some sort of declaration by Clemson and Florida State, this ain't going to end in a week, man. This is going to be drawn out, and politicians are going to get involved, lawyers are going to get involved, a settlement's going to get involved. A lot of worry from fan bases and alumni and donors are going to all get involved. It's not going to be over right at the beginning. When this next phase hits, it's going to last for a very long time.
Well, and then if that guy gets the NCAA, the proposal you saw by the NCAA, I don't see how a lot of these schools, even if you're in the SEC, Big Ten, especially the Big 12 and ACC, how they're going to be able to afford paying kids $30,000 per athlete. I would think a lot of sports are going to get shoved to the side with Title IX to have equal sports. You're going to lose like gymnastics, maybe men's wrestling, swimming. I mean, they're not going to be able to afford. I don't see a lot of these budgets now are stressed. How are they going to handle all that unless donors get involved and give them millions a year to subsidize these?
Well, yeah, I mean, how and that, that takes us to the formation of these so-called trust funds, right? What revenue streams are going in these trust funds? Are they just coming from the athletic department? Are donors going to have to kick in a little bit more? Are they going to take a little bit of a slice from some sort of endowment? Hopefully they don't come from student fees and things like that. So that's another big component to all this. But that's the component, the whole world of student athletes getting higher and higher in compensation. That has been the main straw that has stirred the realignment drink. That is why Texas and Oklahoma called the SEC, because they saw this future happening. That's why USC called the Big Ten. That's why Brett Yormark was so aggressive in his dealings and trying to poach from the Pac-12. They're all trying to survive. They're all trying to make sure they're in the room to so they can vote on, so they can be part of the future. Revenue sharing and being increased to the student athletes is the big straw that is stirring all of this up.
Well, yeah, can you imagine the parents of kids today that are 8, 9, and 10 years old with this new money coming into the college game? Man, you're going to push your kids to perform so you can get the pick back.
Yeah. Yes. Very good point. Very good point.
Hey, Greg, have a great day, man. You're doing a fantastic job on the show.
I appreciate it. Thanks for the call. Please call again, sir.
You bet. See you later.
Great call. Great call. We got so many things going on in college football. There was a question here. Super chat. I'm sorry. Let me get to it as quick as I can. Ryan Willie, thank you so much for your continued generosity to this channel, helping us keep the lights on. Thank you so very much. Are you going to stream any bowl games like Wisconsin versus LSU? Go Badgers! We are absolutely going to be doing watch parties. We're going to be, and now we don't stream any bowl games. This YouTube channel would be locked down immediately if we ever streamed any. But I understand what you're saying. We're going to be doing watch parties where you all watch the game wherever you're at. I watch the game. People in the chat room put down your comments in real time in the chat with phone calls at halftime or post game. Yes, we're going to be doing bowl games. Absolutely, just like we did last year. So make sure, once again, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Make sure you're notified. You hit the notification bell. Because when we do these watch parties, when we do these live shows, you're going to get notified. You can jump right in. Yeah, we're going to be doing the playoff games, the championship games, the big bowl games, some little bowl games. Are we going to be doing LSU and Wisconsin? Probably so. We'll probably have to do the evil Badgers. So thank you, Ryan, for the super chat. I appreciate it very much. Douglas Snyder, wow. As Hemingway said, bankruptcy happens slowly, then all at once. Same with realignment. No truer words have ever been said at Peek Around the Corner. When we covered the Colorado Big 12, Pac-12, we talked about months saying that Colorado was the center of the stage. When we gave the peek to everybody, all the negativity, all just the horrific information that we were getting from the Arizona State money purge, that they were not seeing any real offers. The Pac-12 was not getting any real decent offers from potential media partners. We kept telling you that week in, week out. It was happening slowly, but it was truly happening. The Big 12's ability to poach the Pac-12, it was gaining steam. We talked about the hot bubble of action. It was that May 7th meeting in Chicago when Colorado met with the Big 12, and it didn't even happen right after that. On May 8th, we did a live show saying, Pac-12 got a shot to the solar plexus, but they're still standing. We couldn't give you the information of the meeting, not directly, not the details of it. But we knew we could tell you something big happened, and the Pac-12 was still standing. During the month of May, they were still standing. In the month of June, they were still standing. July 27th, it all happened at once. August 4th, August 3rd, the night of August 3rd, we went on a live show and we said the death knell, the kill shot to the Pac-12 was going to happen the next day, August 4th. And it happened. Bankruptcy happens slowly and then all at once. Same with realignment. Same what's going on in the Holy Smokes Theater here at PATC when it comes to the ACC. It's going to happen very slowly. It's already started to happen. North Carolina, they got to get themselves a chancellor. The battle of that is going to last a while. And whoever ends up in that chair is going to give you all a very strong indication where North Carolina is leaning. And then you have the Virginia Tech story, Florida State being snubbed by ESPN story, Clemson story. Holy smokes. I hope you continue to stick with us here at Peek Around the Corner. We're going to end our stream tonight, but make sure you subscribe to our channel, smash the like button. I want to thank you for all the wonderful donations, the wonderful comments in the chat room, and the incredible phone calls. Once again, from the PATC community. Nobody's going to cover this story like we do it. Nobody. Nobody. We're going to work harder than anybody. We're going to keep giving you the Peek Around the Corner, just like we've done in all the other major stories. So stick with us here at Peek Around the Corner as we get into bowl season. We're getting to the playoffs. And yes, realignment happening, a lot of information. Something big is about to pop. This story is going to get moved forward in the first quarter of 2024. So until next time, from all of us at PATC to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.